Those are the names of some of the towns in that area. Saint-Tropez, Saint-Maxime, Ramatuelle, Gassin, Port-Grimaud, Covalent, La Croix-Valmer, Cavalier-sur-Mer. There's several others. There's a total of 12 towns in that area that are considered part of that bay, the Bay of Saint-Tropez. But, and I say this over and over, but we have 40 churches in Crawfordville, 40. And the need's great. You can find lost people everywhere. Those 12 towns, they have 3 gospel churches, 1 Catholic church in each town, 3 evangelical churches. I'll show you a couple of them, the outside of them. This lady is a lady who is always out on the streets. There's something wrong with her, mentally. Her name's Michelle. I've prayed for her a lot. She did take a tract from me that I offered. But she has clean clothes on every day, I noticed. There's something wrong with her. Her hair is matted and filthy. And she smells horribly. She's got mental problems of some sort. But people with those type of problems in every community. There's another man, Jose. I was able to help him get help from the social services. He was sleeping on the beach every night the whole time I was there. He's from Portugal. For some reason not working, but obviously a believer. He told me he didn't drink or take drugs like a lot of the people that he knows. Here's a young couple. They told me that I had given them a tract a year ago. And so they were really interested in talking to me more about the gospel. The young girl on the right is named Rev, which means dream. And the young man is named, I forgot his name all of a sudden. But anyway, that spot there is right in front of a large store that's similar to Walmart. So I spent a lot of time there. And I especially look for the young people. In France, the young people are open. They're really open, like this group. They all took the tract. And that's the little town of Lazy Sombre, right there by the beach of Lazy Sombre. By the way, it's one of the beaches where the Allies went. There's 3 towns in that area that have beaches where the Allies went ashore, mainly Americans, in 1944. August 15th of 1944. So all those little towns, they remember that. Well, I'll have some other photos of it. Every August 15th, they have a big celebration. They put American flags they line the streets with American and French flags. They have people dressed up in American uniforms of the day. They play the national anthem. They give speeches. They don't forget. And I never heard of August 15th being a big day when the Allies went ashore in southern France. But I use it as an opportunity to witness. Here's the lady who's a Muslim. The only Muslim I've met who had her message to me was, and I wrote about it on Facebook, that when she was in prison, Jesus appeared to her and helped her. Therefore, she prays to Jesus every day, and she knows Jesus is always with her. Amazing. But she considers herself a Muslim. Well, what she doesn't know is she's a Christian. This is a Protestant church that I visited a service in. It's not in that area where I'm at. It's about 50 miles away. There are some Protestant churches in France, thankfully. This is where the church members were kind of gathering after the church service. And it's right there on the sidewalk. So what I did was I started handing out tracts and talking to people about the Lord. The only one that did it, though, they don't mind talking to each other, but you just can't get them to talk. They won't talk to strangers. Just won't do it. This was an interesting situation because one day, I became known in this community doing this every day. This guy, I know, as I was walking up the street, early morning, there's not many people on the sidewalk, I noticed it looked like he was waiting for me, and sure enough he was. he wanted one of my tracks. Someone had told him what I was doing. And so that's what was going on there. Once in a while, I would meet a Christian family. This man, his wife and children, I met at a spot that I often go to. You can see across the street, there's a restaurant. There's a bunch of restaurants over there. And that's actually a park right where he is on a bench. And he and they were on vacation from Paris. This is a major vacation area, French Riviera. Matter of fact, people ask me, why don't I go to the beach? I said, I'm not there on vacation. I'm there working. But him and his wife and family came to the church that I was at for 2 Sundays. Then they went back to Paris. But for example, the most famous town in that area is Saint-Tropez. It has a population of 3,000. During the summer, there's 100,000. So you can imagine walking down their little streets. There's nothing but people walking around, looking at her. That's all they're doing. But here is the interesting part. August 15th, they're selling their World War II stuff. A bunch of people have all kinds of World War II things. Notice there's an American sign there. No trespassing. Violators will be shot. Survivors will be shot again. And that's the American influence there. I mean, and that's what the American soldiers were told. I read a book about that campaign of getting the Germans out of that part of France. And the soldiers were told, every German that you meet, you either kill them or capture them. That's what they were told. The war is hell. Young men killing other young men. What I did was I would go around to each one of those stations. I would say, I'm here for the spiritual warfare. We won the warfare against Hitler, but now there's a warfare against Satan, and you must believe in Jesus. And so quite a few of them took a tract from me. But they have, I don't know if they found this gear or their relatives did years ago, or if Americans gave them some of that stuff, but they've got all kinds of, most of that stuff is from American military that were over there in the World War II. This guy here was a Japanese person just visiting from Japan, very friendly, and he was a veteran in the Japanese military. More of that stuff. And here I am with another lady who told me she was a Christian and never came to church though. Here's a group of Christians. The man and woman on the right are a couple, and that's their daughter singing with them, and their sons on the left. But they have a church in their home. It's one of the 3 churches in that area. This is a third church that I had just discovered recently. It's in the little town of Saint-Tropez, and I visited there at that church service. It's related to the old line Protestant churches from hundreds of years ago. So they have a lot of traditions. It's a traditional type church service. Very small. I mean, it's about, you go in there, it's one room, that's all it is. You go in that door, and there's one little room. It's about a quarter of the size of this room right here. That's their church. They have a bathroom, and then that one meeting room. That's what they got. This is just the courtyard of the hotel where I stayed when I first got there. This is a man very interesting. I met this man, name's Roland. Met him one morning. Oops, now I'm back on doing the automatic slideshow. Let's see if we could try this here. Okay, Roland, I met on the sidewalk, gave him a tract. Almost every morning I went to this little place for a coffee and croissant to start my day. They opened at 6:30 in the morning. And I met with Roland, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. What's interesting about him is Roman Catholic from the town of Dijon. He's a guy who owns a home where he lives further north, and he owns a home here in southern France where he comes every for a month or two every summer. And Roman Catholic. Notice the little pamphlet that he has. And I asked him to let me see it. What it is a thing like Our Daily Bread. It's got Bible verses for each day and a little write-up about it. I was talking to him, and what I realized, he has the same beliefs we have. He doesn't talk about the strange stuff of Roman Catholicism, like Mariology, worshiping Mary, or the ceremonies that they do. He would talk about the Lord and his life of faith. And I was thinking about, what's the difference between him and other Catholics that just have the religious service that they go? The Bible. This is a guy that knew the Bible. He reads the Bible every day, and that's the main part of his Christian life. His main prayer request was for his wife. He's been married 50 years, and his wife is not a believer. So that's what his concern was. This is a boat that I took. Notice the traffic there is horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. It can take 40 minutes to do what would normally be a 10-minute drive. And so to go across the bay to another town, you can take that drive, or you can take one of these boats. This costs 16 euros, which is about $18, $19 round trip. And I took it several times to avoid driving over to Saint-Tropez. There's just another view from that boat.
What's the weather like there?
Pardon?
What's the weather like there?
During the summer, it's the same as here. It was already getting colder, though. I made the mistake of forgetting my jacket when I went over, and it was already in the mornings 50 degrees. And it would warm up by the afternoon to maybe 70. So it was, but it does get cold. It's colder there than here. Other than the summers, they're about the same. They can be pretty intensive heat. These guys here are church members of the church that I was helping out the most. And I've got the name of it on the bulletin. The EGSC, the Church of the Gulf of Saint-Tropez, is the name of the church. It's in the little town of Greenville. That was a work day. We were working together at the inside the church building there, the room that they have. Oop, there I am again. Stopped on that one. What do we got here? This is the work we were doing, retiling the church floor, because they had the tile that they had before was kind of a cardboard type fake wood. Anyway, they had a flood in there. They had a water pipe busted, and they ended up with about 6 inches of water, and it ruined the floor. So now we were putting in ceramic tile. So if that happens again, they won't have to redo it. That's more of the tile work that was done. The entrance to the church is kind of like a welcome area where they have coffee and stuff to drink in the morning, and then further back is where they do the church services. This is an example of the people out on the sidewalk. So that's a little sidewalk restaurant. Notice the water. That's the port area of the town of Saint-Maxime. And it's just people as far as you can see. You go walk for miles, and that's all you see is people outside. These two ladies worked in the hotel that I went into. As a matter of fact, the lady on the left, her name's Kelly. It shows the potential in that country. She was the first person I gave a tract to in that town when I walked in the hotel, because she was working in there. Gave her the tract. She had a little crucifix cross around her neck, and she was open to me talking to her about it. And she told me she would read that with her boyfriend later that evening. Of course, I saw her quite often because I was in the hotel, and I said, "Well, did you read the tract yet?" "No, not yet," she said, "but I'm going to read it." Finally, she told me that she had read the tract. And I said, "Well, after you read the tract, did you pray to Jesus?" She said, No, but I'm going to do that eventually, but not yet." And then the day came where the answer was, yes, I did pray to Jesus. And so I asked her, are you sure that he came into your heart and life? And she said, yes, I am, because there were signs that he did. She was changed. I showed her Bible verses. She started talking about the Lord, gave her a Bible and the New Testament. And when you see that happen, and that was the first person handed a tract to in France. It shows what the potential is. The lady on the right, by coincidence, was a Christian already. She's from the country of Portugal. Or the country of Brazil, pardon me. Her natural language is Portuguese. But she used to be a member of the church that I was trying to help out. And so she helped support my testimony to that young lady. So it shows how the Lord works things out. Just before I left France, both of them left. The lady on the right resigned for physical problems, and the young lady on the left went back to her home in northern France. The other thing that goes on down there in southern France, because those hundreds of thousands of people come down for vacation, all the hotels and restaurants need extra workers. So young people from around France come down there and work just for the summer. She was there just for the summer to work. She's now back in northern France with a new Bible that I sent her, a Schofield Reference Bible. So pray for Kelly and for Andreas. That's the other lady. There we go. There was my morning breakfast, typically. That time I had 2 croissants, and boy, those croissants are delicious. They'll melt in your mouth. It's worth going to France just to get a croissant. And a coffee, and there's my Bible and a tract and a Gospel of John. I'm ready for handing a tract to someone. Matter of fact, one of the places that I went to almost every morning, all the workers got a tract by the time I was done, except for there was one guy who didn't want one. But they got used to me being there every day and then talking about the Lord to different people that I could talk to. And it turned out they liked it. It's a good example of needing a recurring contact with people. The first time contact, they're like, whoa, what is this? But as they get to know you, they get to see you on a regular basis, that you're someone responsible. Here was an event that brought people out on the streets, a classic car show. And they had people dressed up in previous times. Several of the classic cars were old American classic cars. So somewhere along the line they got American cars. There's an old Buick. Here's the port of Saint-Tropez. During this particular week was a week for sailboats to come in. Normally there's big giant millionaire yachts are docked there. They had for 1 week of the year the giant yachts are moved out and the sailboats are allowed to come in. But anyway, it's another event there. There's Kelly again in the hotel. There's the sailboat competition and all the things they got going on. I was riding the bus across the bay that day when the sailboats were out there. That's what they're known for, is this weekly several hundred sailboats all at one time. And there's the other place that I went to for breakfast, called La Halle de Grimaud. And there's their bread behind the counter and all kinds of stuff. It's a good place to hand out tracts. They also had hamburgers. That was my favorite meal there. I would get a hamburger and fries. So they would kind of laugh at me. Oh, that's a typical American. And look at that shirt. One of the church members took a shirt and put it on his little son. And thanks to Layla for given us all those shirts. And it has Romans 10:13, the great salvation verse in both French and English. For God that's 3:16. Whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. I love that Bible verse. And here's on my trip back, the first thing I did was I got on a train to go from the area where I was staying to the Nice airport. And you just, when you get on a train there, you just go and sit wherever you want. You don't have assigned seats or anything. And there it's going along the Mediterranean to the town of Nice. So my trip went very well, thank the Lord. And the Lord brought me back safely. That's just a little flavor of what was going on over there and what the experiences I had. Of course, it just confirms to me the great need in that country. One of my common questions I would ask people, do you have a Bible at home? The most common answer was no. Have you ever read the Bible? The answer was no. Well, I said, well, here's some Bible verses. Another thing I didn't, well, other than the one Muslim lady, many Muslim people on the streets. For the most part, friendly to me. And most of the Muslims, I would say 3/4 of them or so, would take the track. Some of them were, not so friendly. There was another noticeable thing is Jehovah's Witnesses. Every town has a group of Jehovah's Witnesses, it seems like. And a couple of times I try to talk to them, but you just can't. It's like in America, you can't get anywhere with them. They're so indoctrinated. But the phrase that I like to say to a Jehovah's Witness to get to right to the point is, Jesus is Jehovah. And I had a long conversation with one Jehovah's Witness lady, 2 ladies. And, I just got right to the point. Well, have you ever prayed to Jesus? No, we don't pray to Jesus. He's not God. That's the point. Jesus is God. Remember one time Jesus said, your sins are forgiven you. And the Pharisees who knew the Bible, the Old Testament Bible, said, who can forgive sins but God only? They were right. That's proof that Jesus, one of the proofs that Jesus is God. He does forgive sins. But I said, well, do you have Jesus in your heart? What? What's that mean? Of course we don't have Jesus in our heart. And so you get right to the point with them. And they'll love to pretend like they agree with you. They'll love to pretend they're Christians just like you are. The main point is, if someone's a Christian or not, who is Jesus? If someone cannot say Jesus is the Son of God or God the Son, they're not a Christian. As a matter of fact, that's the big hang-up that the Muslims have. God can't have a son. He's God. Only human beings can have a son. Who is Jesus? The Muslims have led, the Muslim teachings have led people down the road that Jesus is only a prophet. He's not the Son of God. The Jehovah's Witnesses have led people down the road. Jehovah is God, and they have their Bible proofs. What's his name in the Old Testament? They're right on the point. His name revealed in the Old Testament is Jehovah. In the King James Version,
It's also Yahweh.
right, another way of pronouncing it. That's the 4 letters. In ancient Hebrew, they only wrote the consonants. They didn't write the vowels. So the word Jehovah can also be pronounced Yahweh, depending upon where you put the vowels. The point of it is that, and I personally believe that Jehovah is the better pronunciation, the more likely. And the reason for that is one explanation of how the word Jehovah is used in the Old Testament. You remember one of the great commandments is, one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. The way the Jews made sure they didn't take the name of the Lord in vain, they wouldn't say the name of the Lord. So they would say, instead of saying Jehovah or Yahweh, they would say Lord. That's why the King James, they copied that. They followed that system. The word Jehovah in almost every occurrence, which is close to 10,000, I think, in the Old Testament, is Lord. L-O-R-D capitalized. So the word for Lord in Hebrew is Adonai. So when they would read Jehovah, the Jews would say Adonai. They wouldn't say Jehovah. They want to make sure they obeyed that commandment. The writers of the King James follow that. In fact, if you have a King James version, you go in the Old Testament, if you see L-O-R-D, all caps, that's actually in Hebrew, Jehovah. And so the Jehovah's Witnesses are correct when they say God's name is Jehovah. Well, his name in the Old Testament was Jehovah. The first time that name was revealed, by the way, that name means I am. That's what it means. The first time that name was revealed was to Moses at the burning bush, when God said, I am that I am. That was Jehovah. Interesting thing, one time Jesus is speaking to a large crowd of Jewish people, of course. He mainly spoke to Jewish people, not always, but mainly. And what did he say? It's John chapter 8, I think it's verse 58. He said, before Abraham was, I am. They took up stones to stone him for blasphemy. They knew what he was saying. He was saying, I'm Jehovah. That's what he was saying. It's real clear. It's real clear in the Bible that Jesus claimed to be Jehovah. He was Jehovah. The person at the burning bush was Jesus. John knew that by the Holy Spirit when he wrote John chapter 1. He wrote, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. How do the Jehovah's Witnesses get around that? They lie. They say, oh, it's a small g in the original language. There's no such thing as small g's in the original language. They didn't have small letters and capital letters in the ancient languages. It's a lie. There's no such thing as small g with the word God in the Greek language and a large G with the word. It doesn't exist. But that's what they say in order to get around that verse. So that's really the issue. Who is Jesus? That's really the issue. And what's so sad is so you have the Muslims that have taught them Jesus isn't God. You have the Jehovah's Witnesses that taught people. And just think of it, how do they get swallowed up into that? Because they're standing there at their stands. Bible studies, free Bible studies. That's one of their advertisements. Here's our website, jw.com. Just go to our website and you'll learn about the Bible. Who's that tempting to? To someone that doesn't know the Bible. And someone says, you know what? I've never studied the Bible. Here's an opportunity for me to finally study the Bible. And they're good at indoctrinating people with that type of attitude. And they put their teachings into them. And they think they're Christians. And they think because they pray to Jehovah, when there's no other name given among men whereby we must be saved. What name is that? Jesus. Not Jehovah. You can't be saved by praying to Jehovah. I got news for you. You can't be. Not in the age in which we live. The age of the New Testament. Not since Jesus came. That's why the angel Gabriel said to Mary, you will call his name Jesus because he will save his people from their sins. The word Jesus means Savior. The word Jehovah means the eternally existent one. By the way, it's one of the reasons I like the French translation of that word Jehovah. Guess how they translate it? The eternal one. That's how they translate it. L'Éternel, and that's what I am means. I'm the one that always has existed. Therefore, I can give you eternal life. So in the King James, we have the word Lord, L-O-R-D, copying the Jewish people, what they did. In the French Bible, they have the French translation, they have the word L'Éternel, which means the eternal one. It's really one word in French, but to translate it, you have to say the eternal one. And so that's what John 3:16 is all about, right? The eternity. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. That's what God wants to do. He wants to give everyone everlasting life. What's his means of doing that? Oh, you and me were his witnesses. That's why Jesus said, he gave us a job. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. That's your job and mine. The most important part of it is how we live. You preach the gospel and you're a hypocrite, then you're going to destroy your testimony. You're going to harm people spiritually. But that's our job. How shall they believe except they hear? And how shall they hear except someone tell them the gospel? You just got to get in the habit of doing it. If you believe in Jesus, he wants you to tell other people. It's that simple. One of the ways he put it was, they that confess me before men, I will confess before my Father who's in heaven. That sounds important to me. Sounds like it's important to them that a human being on the earth who believes in Jesus will actually tell other people it's important to believe in Jesus and give their testimony, quote Bible verses, attempt to lead them to Christ by what we say. It's called the testimony. Jesus is the faithful witness. We fail often. We probably have many days. I know I do. I could have said something to that person. I didn't do it. I could have handed them a gospel pamphlet. It was a good opportunity to do it. I didn't do it. Boy, am I a lazy, wicked Christian. All the times that I did, that doesn't mean nothing if I miss other ones. When the most important need is for people to go to heaven. How shall they believe except they hear? Romans 10:14. Remember the great Bible verse that Layla put on the t-shirt? Romans 10:13. Whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. But how are they going to call upon his name if they don't know they need to call upon his name? And that's where you and I come in. I mean, he could do like he did with Sarah, that was her name, the Muslim lady. She must have heard about Jesus from somewhere, though. Well, he's in the Koran. His name is in the Koran. Jesus the prophet. Jesus is in the Koran, which I use that point to talk to Muslims. Why? He's in the Koran and he's in the Bible. Don't you want to read some of the things that he taught? The Koran says he's a prophet. He's a prophet. That means what he says is true. Why not read some of his words? Almost always, if I have a chance to say that to a Muslim in France, they'll take the track. Almost always. Just a little logic. A little logic. As I tell them, my goal is not to change their religion. My goal is to get them to think about Jesus and what he taught.